One of 3 B-29 bombers arrives at Chicago Airport after a 6,000-mile non-stop flight from Japan in 25 hours. Generals O'Donnell, LeMay, and Giles, commanders of superfortress warfare against Japan, piloted these ships home. Stripped of armor and guns, the planes originally carried 10,000 gallons of gasoline at the takeoff from Hokkaido Island for the trip via the Arctic Circle, a quarter way around the world. Now the B-29 group comes down at Washington after 29 hours, and the B-29 officers are greeted by Air Force's Chief Arnold. 3 men who have earned a well done for their successful leadership. Driven by a 140-mile-an-hour wind, a tropical hurricane sweeps in from the Caribbean to lash both coasts of the state of Florida and cause an estimated $50 million in damage. Miami's waterfront and residential areas are whipped by the wind. Scenes are reminiscent of the fierce storms of 1926, when over 300 died, and of 1928, worst in history, when 2,000 were killed. But now, hurricane-proof buildings stand up to the strongest gale. The ocean is lifted into Miami streets, and palm trees are torn to shreds as the hurricane reaches its peak, shattering acres of plate glass in the city's shops. Pedestrians are driven to storm-proof shelters, and motorists struggle to reach safe haven. Communications and crops also suffer heavily as the storm ravages the entire area before sweeping north and out to sea. In the midst of the storm, raging fires break out. Daylight reveals the extent of damage caused by the high-velocity storm. Greatest single loss is suffered at the great United States Navy airship base at Richmond, Florida. Huge single-span wooden structures were swept by fire. 366 aircraft were lost. The loss at this air base added considerably to the hurricane's heavy toll. President Truman, retiring Secretary of War Henry Louis Stimson appears on the White House lawn. The Distinguished Service Medal awarded by the President honors Mr. Stimson on his 78th birthday for outstanding long service as head of the War Department. New War Secretary Patterson congratulates his departing chief. General Staff officers escort Mr. and Mrs. Stimson as they leave Washington by plane. 40 years a public servant, 3 times a member of presidential cabinets, Mr. Stimson was chief of the War Department from the beginning of mobilization until the achievement of total victory. Generals of the Army Marshall and Arnold join the nation in thanks to a distinguished leader. At Fort Hamilton, New York, Sergeant Joe Louis marches up to receive military honors. To the world's heavyweight boxing champion goes the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. During his physical training tours of Army camps in the United States, England, Africa, and Italy, Joe Louis fought in 96 exhibition bouts. Soon to be discharged, he expects to return to professional boxing. Back to her own country after 14 months in the United States comes Madame Chiang Kai-shek. She is now near recovery after several months of treatment in New York. Generalissimo Chung arrives to meet his wife at Chungking. Now at the Chung's country home, a banquet for the crew of the United States C-54 transport that brought Madame Chung home. And decorations from the Generalissimo. Sheltered harbor of Hong Kong off the south coast of China, one of the world's great ports. Only slightly damaged by war, Hong Kong has been occupied by the Japanese for nearly 4 years. Now British forces return to take over the last major strong point in enemy hands. Japanese snipers are fired on, the last shots fired by British soldiers in this war. The last few sullen holdouts are rounded up. Chinese civilians of Hong Kong watch occupation troops enter. With the questioning of the Japanese former commandant, the formal surrender, which took just 12 minutes, is over. Aboard the destroyer Levy, a surrender that recalls tales of heroism takes place. The Marines come back to Wake Island. U.S. General Lawson Sanderson accepts the capitulation of the Japanese garrison. Wake Island, bypassed in the surging Pacific offensive, is reclaimed at war's end. All over the Pacific, the Japanese give up completely. Weapons, including samurai swords, are handed over to U.S. troops. Stars and stripes are raised again on Wake. Here and throughout the Pacific, Japanese domination is at an end.